Let me start by congratulating PMI for once again showing positive community leadership and organizing the 2015 Congress and selecting the important theme of restructuring Greece, project managing the challenge. And I'd like to thank Chairman Panos Hatzipanos and Vice Chair Aris Singros for the invitation to address the 2015 Congress. As you know, I am very often in Greece, as we have a large long-term investment here. But my schedule has me traveling abroad today, so I'm providing my comments via this video. My comments today have one important takeaway message, which is also the title you see on the screen. The turnaround for Greece government finances starts with correctly measuring debt and debt relief. To repeat, the turnaround for Greece government finances starts with correctly measuring debt and debt relief. For almost the past 4 years, we have studied the Greece government finances and the finances of other governments. Our special focus has been on measuring government debt and debt relief. There are 4 facts we discovered that impact the turnaround of Greece. Each of the 4 discoveries is as shocking a discovery as we have ever seen. Discovery number 1, Greece debt is a huge competitive advantage, not a debt mountain. Some of you who have studied the topic of the Greece government debt know this to be a fact. But to those without the necessary education, this clearly qualifies as a shocking discovery. This may sound like heresy, but truer words have never been spoken. I'll discuss this in more detail in a minute. Discovery number 2 in part explains why there was discovery number 1. Although this is 2015, the Greece government still does not have financial statements. In fact, the Greece government does not even have a balance sheet. What is presented as a balance sheet is nothing more than a group of incomplete numbers compiled from sources without internationally comparable rules for measurement or without the ability to be audited. And if anyone says there is a balance sheet for the Greece government, ask for a copy and compare it to a real balance sheet. You will see it is not a balance sheet. Discovery number 3 is that the Greece government at the sovereign level uses what are best described as single-entry cash basis accounting systems. What this means is the general government uses financial management systems that leading countries in Europe discarded in the 18th century. Greece is a highly complex general government with approximately 80 billion euros in revenues and expenditures, 600,000 plus government employees, and a combination of assets and liabilities well over €500 billion, and is managed with financial systems that resemble a personal checkbook. Again, if anyone tells you this is not true, please let us know, and we will dedicate the staff to discuss this in public or in private. The 4th vital discovery, which also in part explains the first discovery, is that the general government has no turnaround managers. They have no senior ministers who have experience in using financial statements to manage and measure financial performance. And if anyone says this is not totally true, find the person and ask them how they measure Greece's government's PV of net debt or debt relief, and ask them for the general government's balance sheet. With these as the background discoveries, I will first discuss the results of measuring Greece and peer government debt and debt relief. And then I will conclude my comments with a 100-day turnaround plan for Greece to capture the benefits of having debt as a huge competitive advantage. To keep the message clear, I have only 5 slides. Let's start with the results of correctly measuring the present value of net debt for Greece and peers. As you can see at the top, the title of the slide is Turnaround for Greece, PV of net debt. The takeaway message of the slide is that Greece's present value, which is abbreviated by the initials PV, of net debt as a percentage of GDP was only 22% of peers, and the PV of debt was 60% of peers when calculated correctly using either international accounting standards or international macroeconomic statistic rules, which provide the same numbers. Looking carefully at the slide, you will see at the top the often repeated Greece debt number of 319 billion euros, or 175% of GDP, which is much higher than the peer average of 120%. These numbers are based on a debt number that is best described as the future face value of debt. The future face value breaks both international accounting standards and international macroeconomic statistic rules. It breaks the rules by totally ignoring the rules. Future face value totally ignores economic reality and takes the amount of money due at maturity and calls it the debt number. If you take a few minutes to think about it, the future face value for Greece is a legal number totally ignoring the massively restructured debt or the concessional debt. Greece has debt with negative interest rates, maturities as far out as almost 50 years, and grace periods in the 20-year range. Using future face value of Greece debt is wrong, and it's destructive. Using future face value breaks not only the international accounting rules, it breaks the international macroeconomic statistics rules. It even breaks the European macroeconomic statistics debt measurement rules, which were passed by European Parliament with the force of law. To be clear, future face value breaks the rules. As you will see with the red circle at the top of the page, Greece's present value of debt as a percentage of GDP is 60% of peers. And once financial assets are subtracted from the PV of debt number, Greece's debt competitive advantage becomes even more crystal clear. Look at the red circle in the middle of the page that shows Greece's PV of net debt as a percentage of GDP at only 22% of peers. Financial assets are important for Greece, but they are not that much larger than Ireland or Portugal. When Greece borrows concessional loans from the ESM and invests in the financial instruments of the banks, its net worth has not declined, as would appear to be the case when looking only at the debt. A respected think tank in the US, the Peterson Institute, called looking at the Greece debt increase used to fund financial assets an optical illusion of a debt increase. We have presented this debt competitive advantage discovery throughout Europe and the United States without a single challenge. This chart, which you're looking at, has been presented at the OECD Accruals Conference in Paris, at leading think tank and university conferences in Munich, Brussels, Berlin, and London, and at leading accounting conferences globally. The debt numbers have been verified by one of the big 4 accounting firms. And we have obviously shared our material with government and political officials throughout Europe, including in Greece. Now, don't blame the official creditors for the Greece Government Finance Ministry not publishing a correct PV of net debt and debt relief numbers. The IMF has manuals which help quickly estimate a PV of net debt, even if from a lender who is looking to protect its loans, which is what should be expected and is reasonable. The ESM has published in its annual report a yeoman's attempt at PV of its Greece loans. Even the German Finance Ministry has talked about the switch to present value net. But it's the responsibility of the Greek Finance Ministry to correctly calculate and report the PV of net debt and debt relief using international accounting and international macroeconomic statistics rules. Outside of Greece, the present value of net debt number is gaining wider daily recognition. For example, there is a recent Harvard Business School case study and an article published in the highly regarded Journal of Intereconomics. The website www.mostimportantreform.info lists dozens of highly respected individuals that have taken the time to publish articles confirming the correct debt measurement for Greece. In sum, there is no excuse for using the future face value of Greece debt in decision making. You may hear excuses, but those who continue to use the future face value number will not debate their opinions publicly with us, and they continue to talk to only those who are uneducated on the topic. They will eventually either recognize reality or will become extinct with time and judged very badly by history. Let's move to the next turnaround for Greece slide called debt service. We've included this data because more recently there has been an evolution away from using the future face value of debt by Greek creditors to a number attempting to measure debt service. Public comments by official creditors include those by the IMF, the ESM, and the German Finance Ministry. Debt service is the annual interest payments and principal payments on bonds and loans. As you will see in the table, Greece number for 2016 is 6%, which is only 47% of the peers. This is even lower than the 60% number pre-financial assets on the prior page. Some have sought to use a modified version of this number called gross financing needs, which puts Greece at a higher percentage than its peers. But it's important to note that the increase from 6% to 19% is not related to annual debt service, but to other assumptions about fiscal management. The higher number should not be blamed on the debt. If you have no understanding of international accounting or international macroeconomic statistics rules, then go ahead and use the shorthand debt service, which puts Greece debt to GDP at 47% of the peers. But don't forget to deduct the financial assets, which would make the comparison even more favorable for Greece than the 22% of peers' PV of net debt as a percentage of GDP comparison. Let's now take a look at the turnaround for Greece in the context of measuring debt relief on the latest 86 billion euro program. Correctly calculated, Greece debt relief on the total program is 64.4 billion euros. This is obviously very different from the claims that Greece has not yet received any debt relief under the third program. The debt measurement rules are the same international accounting, IPSAS and IFRS, and the same international macroeconomic rules, 2008 SNA or 2010 ESA, and they are harmonized. The economic rationale is clear, as it rests on one of the bedrock principles of finance, economics, and accounting, which is the time value of money. The terms of the loans are highly concessional and vastly better than market terms, especially for a CCC rated credit. Interest expense is around 1%, maturities approaching 50 years, and grace periods of 20 years. For those who want to see the underlying analysis, we have made the Excel models available at www.mostimportantreform.info. I can understand how learning that Greece debt is a competitive advantage and not a debt burden may be hard for those who've been repeating this falsehood for the past 3 years. But it's time to get the right people with the right experience in Greece to start educating the world on the Greece debt competitive advantage. This takes us to our last slide on the turnaround for Greece, which is the 100-day plan. The 100-day plan has 7 milestones with 30-day, 60-day, and 100-day assessments. There is one major assumption behind this very doable plan. The assumption is that Greece has a 5-star finance ministry with globally respected experience in finance, accounting, and turnaround management. Yes, this means that the senior members of the finance ministry must be selected based on a meritocracy in finance, accounting, turnaround management, and not based on political or personal connections. The key milestones start with reporting the present value of Greece net debt in 30 days, reporting changes in net worth on major decisions by day 60, and publishing a preliminary balance sheet by day 100. These are all very doable milestones if the senior finance ministry has the necessary globally respected 5-star experience in finance, accounting, and turnaround management. The benefits of changing the misperception that Greece has a debt mountain to appreciating Greece has a huge debt competitive advantage will be equal to what some have called a super shock. Within 100 days, 10-year government borrowing costs could decline to 3%. The Athens Stock Exchange could increase 40%. The government could issue 3 billion of euro bonds, and at least one bond rating could reach BB. And the government bonds could be both ECB program eligible and QE eligible. Yes, these are our views, but our views reflect the powerful benefits of Greece having at last a globally respected 5-star finance ministry, especially a globally respected 5-star finance ministry that can correctly calculate debt and debt relief. And this means correctly calculating the present value of net debt for Greece. These milestones should not be surprising, as the mountainous debt falsehood has very deep and destructive roots. In fact, the roots are so deep that many in this room will feel very uncomfortable having to admit that the debt mountain was in fact a huge competitive advantage. But this is understandable. Greece has yet to have a senior 5-star finance ministry selected based on globally respected experience in finance, accounting, and turnaround management. To put this in perspective, just think how much damage has resulted from having Greek government officials traveling the world telling anyone who will listen how Greece is a suffocating mountain of debt and more debt relief is the only hope for a bankrupt nation. And these comments come from those who do not want to and do not have the experience to correctly calculate debt and debt relief numbers, and also see publishing a proper balance sheet as an act of treason. If you'd like to do more reading on the turnaround for Greece, we have 4 recommendations. Greece's new agreement with Europe, this time is different. Intereconomics, September, October 2015, by Theodore Pelagidis and myself. Greece's Debt Sustainable, Harvard Business School case study, June 2015, by George Serafin. Greece owes less than Europe says, Politico, July 2, 2015 by Jake Soll, author of The Reckoning, Financial Accountability and the Rise and Fall of Nations, and Greece Adopts Ipsos, Public Finance International, May 2015 by Ian Ball. In the last few minutes, I've been asked to respond to several questions on the topic of my comments. Turnaround for Greece government finances starts with correctly measuring debt and debt relief. Question 1. So why do so many continue to use a meaningless future face value number for Greece debt? There are 3 reasons. 1, the Maastricht Treaty is a legal document which says use future face value even if the debt has a negative interest and is not due for 1,000 years, or even if the debt has €1 face value and billions in interest. 2, others continue to use the meaningless future face value number given an absence of education in the rules and the rationale for the rules. And the 3rd reason, there are political motivations to claiming a debt mountain as a cause for Greece problems. Question number 2. Do international accounting and international macroeconomic statistics rules provide the same present value of Greece debt? The answer is yes, if the rules are correctly applied. The numbers will be very close, if not identical. Question 3. Did you say the Greece government does not even have a balance sheet and uses single-entry cash basis accounting systems? Correct. The Greece general government does not have a balance sheet resembling a proper balance sheet. What is passed as a balance sheet is less than 1% of what is a real balance sheet. Question 4. What can we do to help the government start the turnaround? You all have the power to help start the turnaround by simply asking the political and government officials at this conference the question: what is the present value of Greece net debt? Ask the question: how does the present value of Greece net debt as a percentage of GDP compare to other program countries? Ask the question. Don't be afraid. Ask the question. Question 5. Are creditors not using present value of net debt in order to avoid accounting losses? To be clear, using international accounting rules, the ESM, EFSF, and the IMF loans have been properly structured to avoid any losses associated with originating the new loans. The losses excuse is often used to place the blame where it does not belong. Last question, 6. Are you saying that if the Greece government reported the correct debt number, it would help? It would massively help. It's absolutely essential. Greece is a turnaround, and accurate financial information is the only way to start. To effectively manage, it starts with accurate measurement of debt and debt relief. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact us directly. Also, we're very open to private or public debates on the topic of why the turnaround for Greece government finances starts with correctly measuring debt and debt relief. And please remember to ask political and government officials at this conference. Ask the question, what is the PV of Greece government net debt? Again, ask them the question at the conference. What is the PV of Greece government net debt? Thank you.